1. We're checking out this awesome piece of American trucking history. A 1985 Ford F350 that's popped up on Craigslist for $13,000. And let me tell you, this one's pretty special. First off, we're looking at an original owner truck with just 50,502 miles. That's practically nothing for these old workhorses. Under the hood, you've got the legendary 6.9 LIDI diesel V8 paired with a manual transmission. And get this, it's got a gear splitter for extra versatility. Whether you're cruising on the highway or pulling heavy loads, this truck's got you covered. The seller's been using this beast to tow a 12,000 pound boat, which really shows what these F350s are capable of. It's rocking a clean title, rear-wheel drive, and comes in a nice blue color. The 8-foot bed has been protected by a bed liner since day one, keeping it in pristine condition. Now, let's be real here. There are a couple of things to note. The heater core is bypassed, which is something you might want to address. But on the bright side, the AC works, which is rare for these old trucks. It's got a new radiator, and the seller mentions it drives really well with good tires. For $13,000, you're getting a well-maintained, single-owner diesel truck with low miles that's ready to work. These old Ford diesels are known for their reliability, and with proper maintenance, this truck could keep serving its next owner for many years to come. 2. We're looking at a piece of American SUV history. A 1980 Chevrolet Suburban Scottsdale 4X4 that's up for grabs at $4,500. Let me tell you what we've got here. This is one of those classic family haulers that helped establish the Suburban's legendary status. We're looking at the desirable 4X4 model with a 350 V8 under the hood. That's the reliable small block Chevy that just keeps on ticking. With 134,710 miles on the clock, it's actually pretty reasonable for a 43-year-old vehicle. What's cool about this particular Suburban is that it comes with the third-row seat, which wasn't always a given back then. You're getting the Scottsdale trim level, which was a nice middle ground package in 1980. The power locks, steering, and brakes are nice conveniences, and that roof rack adds some practical utility. Now let's be real here. At $4,500, you're not getting a show car. These old Suburbans are known to rust, and being honest, you'll want to give the body a thorough inspection. The seller's description is pretty basic, which means you'll definitely want to check it out in person and maybe bring a mechanic along. But here's the thing. The seller says it runs and drives good, and these old Suburbans are generally pretty simple to work on. The 350 automatic combination is about as bulletproof as they come, and parts are still readily available. For someone looking for a classic SUV with real capability, this could be a solid project. It's got the right specs. 4x4, V8, 3 rows of seats. And it's priced in the reasonable range for what it is. Just remember, you're buying a 43-year-old vehicle, so expect to do some maintenance and repairs along the way. 3. We're checking out a 1966 Ford F250 that's listed for $13,000 OBO on Craigslist, and I've got to be straight with you about this one. Let's start with the good stuff. This is a true classic with the desirable V8 engine that's been reconstructed, showing less than 10,000 miles since the rebuild. It's wearing a red paint job and comes with a clean title, which is always a plus for vintage vehicles. But here's where we need to get real. This truck needs quite a bit of work. The seller's being upfront about it needing cosmetic and cabin restoration, suspension work, new tires, and attention to the truck bed. That's a pretty substantial list of needed repairs, folks. While the engine is reportedly in great working mechanical condition, and it's got an automatic transmission, which is a nice feature for a 66, you're looking at a project truck here. These old F250s are absolute workhorses and have fantastic potential. But at $13,000, you need to carefully consider the additional investment required to address all those needed repairs. The 66 F-Series trucks are highly sought after for their classic styling and robust build quality. They represent a golden era of American truck manufacturing, and with the right restoration, they can be absolutely stunning. However, this particular example is going to need some serious TLC to get there. 4. We're looking at something pretty special. A 1970 Chevy CST, custom sport truck, that's popped up on Craigslist for $16,500. And let me tell you, this is an interesting find. First off, this is reportedly a one-owner, family-owned truck, which is pretty remarkable for a 53-year-old vehicle. It's packing the matching numbers 350 V8 paired with the bulletproof turbo 350 automatic transmission, a combination that's proven itself time and time again. Now, what makes this CST special is its loaded status. We're talking power steering, air conditioning, and the desirable deluxe interior with bucket seats and console, features that weren't common in trucks of this era. Those upper and lower chrome strip moldings and the original tachometer really add to its premium status. But let's talk about that odometer reading. 3.5 million miles seems, well, let's be honest, that's likely a typo or the odometer has rolled over multiple times. This is something you definitely want to discuss with the seller. The seller claims it's wearing its original paint and describes it as unmolested, which, if true, makes this a rare survivor indeed. It's a long bed model, which some collectors actually prefer for their versatility. For $16,500, you're looking at a fairly priced CST if everything checks out. These custom sport trucks were Chevy's answer to more luxurious pickups, and they've become increasingly collectible. However, as with any classic vehicle, you'll want to inspect it thoroughly. Check for rust in the usual spots, verify the matching numbers, and make sure all those power accessories are working. 5. We're checking out a 1972 Chevy K10-4X4 that's listed for $12,500. And I've got to be honest, this one's got an interesting story to tell. First off, this is a documented two-owner truck, which is pretty rare for a 50-year-old vehicle. What's really cool is it comes with the original build sheet, owner's manual, and, get this, a notebook from the first owner detailing the truck's history. That kind of documentation is gold for vintage vehicles. Under the hood, we've got the classic combo of a Chevy 350 V8 paired with the turbo 350 automatic transmission, one of the most reliable powertrains ever put in a truck. The odometer shows 126,000 miles, but the seller mentions it's rolled over, so we're looking at 226,000 plus miles here. Now, let's be real about the condition. The seller's being upfront that it needs some work. There are normal spots of rust, which is pretty common for these old K10s, but it does have new rocker panels installed. The truck wears a yellow paint job and comes with a clean title. The seller seems pretty firm on the price and knows the market for these trucks, which have been steadily climbing in value. These 67, 72 Chevy trucks, often called Action Line or Glamour pickups, are highly sought after, especially in 4x4 configuration. At $12,500, considering the documentation and known history, this could be a solid buy for someone looking for a classic 4x4 project. Just be aware that you're going to need to address that rust and probably do some other work to get it into top shape. The great thing about these K10s is that parts are readily available and they're relatively simple to work on. 6. We're checking out something really special. A 1966 Chevrolet El Camino that's listed for $17,900. And let me tell you, this one's catching my eye. What we've got here is a southeastern example, which is huge because these cars often suffered from rust issues in other regions. The seller's straight up about it being a clean, rust-free specimen, which is getting increasingly rare for these 57-year-old beauties. Under the hood, we're looking at a 327 V8 paired with a TH350 automatic transmission. A fantastic combination that offers both reliability and performance. With 69,500 miles showing, which the seller believes to be original, this El Camino hasn't been run into the ground. The feature list includes power steering and power brakes, which make this classic much more enjoyable to drive than its non-powered counterparts. They've added Flowmaster exhaust, which probably gives this beauty a wonderful muscle car rumble. These 327s sound amazing with a good exhaust setup. What's particularly appealing about this listing is the seller's straightforward approach. They're confident the car looks as good in person as it does in photos, which is refreshing in the classic car world, where sometimes photos can be deceiving. At $17,900, considering the condition, the rust-free southeastern history, and the desirable powertrain combo, this seems like fair market value in today's classic car climate. The 66 El Camino is one of the most sought-after years, combining the beautiful styling of the Chevelle with pickup utility. 7. We're looking at a pretty special 1967 Ford F-250 Camper Special that's listed for $28,800. And I've got to tell you about this interesting piece of Ford history. First off, this isn't your average F-250. It's a Camper Special, which was Ford's beefed-up version specifically designed for RV enthusiasts back in the day. What makes this one particularly interesting is that it's showing just 83,000 original miles. But here's where it gets better. It's had some serious recent work done. The seller has basically rebuilt this truck from the ground up. We're talking a freshly rebuilt engine with only 300 miles on it, a rebuilt transmission, and a whole list of new components: carburetor, radiator, battery, alternator, and tires. They've even gone the extra mile with fresh paint and reupholstered seats. Now, let's talk about that $28,800 asking price. The seller mentions they've invested over $30,000 in the restoration, which I can believe given the list of new parts and work done. However, that's a pretty serious price tag for a 67 F-250, even a Camper Special. To be completely honest with you, while this truck sounds beautifully restored and mechanically solid, you'll want to inspect all that recent work carefully. Make sure everything's been done to a high standard, because at this price point, you deserve excellence. These Camper Specials are becoming increasingly collectible, especially as vintage camping becomes more popular. They came with heavier-duty components than standard F-250S, making them more capable and nowadays more desirable. 8. We're looking at a 1965 Chevy C10 that's listed for $8,500. And I've got to be straight with you about this one. It's definitely a project truck. The seller's refreshingly honest, listing the condition as fair and calling it a barn find without the barn. What we've got here is a West Coast truck, which is actually a big plus because these old C10s often suffered from serious rust issues in other regions. The seller mentions there's no cancer, serious rust, just surface rust, which is pretty typical for a 58-year-old truck. Under the hood, there's a 350 V8 that turns over. Note, they don't say it runs. And it's got the classic 3-on-the-tree manual transmission. That's a manual shifter mounted on the steering column for you younger folks. This was a pretty cool setup back in the day, though it can be finicky after all these years. The good news is that the chassis, differential, and struts are reportedly in great shape. Being a West Coast truck, its entire life has definitely helped preserve the bones of this classic. At $8,500, you're buying potential here. These 60s C10s have become incredibly popular for restoration projects, and parts availability is excellent. The fact that it's a Western truck with solid bones makes it a better starting point than many others out there. However, let's be real. You're looking at a project that's going to need some serious work. The engine condition isn't clear, and there's definitely some cosmetic work needed. The upside is that these trucks are relatively simple to work on, and there's a huge aftermarket support for them. 9. We're checking out something pretty wild. A 1971 Ford F-100 that's listed for $25,000. And let me tell you, this is no ordinary work truck. This is what happens when someone builds their dream hot rod truck with no expense spared. Let's start with the power plant. We're talking about a big block 460 with an aggressive cam setup, breathing through a Holley truck Avenger carb and long tube headers. That's serious power, folks. It's backed by an upgraded C6 automatic transmission with an art car shifter, a combination built to handle all that muscle. The suspension has been thoroughly modernized with AutoFab beams, extended radius arms, and King shocks up front. Those are premium components that seriously improve the handling and ride quality. The truck sits on American racing wheels wrapped in General Grabber at 2S with plenty of tread left. What's really impressive is that despite all these performance upgrades, they've kept the creature comforts. The vintage-style AC blows cold, the heater works, and all the original gauges are functional. They've even added mini tubs in the rear, 4-inch, to accommodate wider rubber. Being a California-Arizona truck, the body is super straight, which is crucial for these classics. The orange paint really makes it pop, and at 51,400 miles rolled over, it's got plenty of life left in it. At $25,000, you're looking at a turnkey hot rod truck that's had some serious money invested in it. The combination of that big block power, upgraded suspension, and modern conveniences makes this a truck you could actually drive and enjoy regularly. 10. We're looking at a 1974 Chevy 3/4 ton work truck that's listed for $10,300. And let me tell you about this working-class hero. What we've got here is a daily driven workhorse that's been updated where it counts. Under the hood sits a newer 350 engine, 1988 or newer, paired with a 400 turbo automatic transmission. That's a solid, reliable combination. The 3.73 Posey rear end is a great ratio for both work and regular driving. The seller's been upfront about the truck's condition and features. It's got some nice upgrades like power steering and power disc brakes, which make it much more user-friendly than a stock 74. The heavy-duty lumber rack and 2 inches receiver hitch with a heavy-duty rear step bumper show. This truck means business. Here's what's particularly interesting. The seller claims no rust on the sheet metal, which is pretty remarkable for a truck of this age. The interior is described as nice, and it's got some comfort features like a tilt wheel, folding bench seat, and a slider rear window. Now let's be honest about a few things. The AC is present but not working, and the odometer is broken. These are common issues on these old trucks, but something to factor into the price. At $10,300, you're getting a solid work truck that's been maintained well enough to be a daily driver. These 73, 87 Chevys, known as square bodies, have been climbing in value. But this one's still set up as a practical worker rather than a showpiece. 11. We're checking out a 1975 Ford F250 Extra Cab that's listed for $15,000. And let me tell you about this interesting piece of Ford history. What makes this truck special is that it's an extra cab model, a relatively rare configuration for these mid-70s Fords. Under the hood, we've got the mighty FE 390 V8 engine paired with a 3-speed automatic transmission. That FE 390 is a torquey beast that's known for its reliability and pulling power. The truck comes with some nice features, including power steering, power brakes, and an aftermarket AC system. They've also added a nice stereo system, which is a welcome upgrade from the original AM radio these typically came with. Now, let's be honest here. The seller's pretty upfront about this being a project that needs some TLC. It's a father selling his son's unfinished project, which often means there might be some loose ends to tie up. The odometer shows 100,000 miles, but on a 48-year-old truck, that number should always be taken with a grain of salt. One positive note for California buyers: being a 1975 model means no smog certificate is needed, which can be a big plus in that state. At $15,000 firm, this is a pretty serious ask for a 75 F250 that needs work. While these trucks are climbing in value and the extra cab configuration is desirable, you'll want to thoroughly inspect what kind of TLC it needs before pulling the trigger. 12. We're looking at a 1980 Chevrolet Silverado Suburban that's listed for $10,500, and this one's got some interesting features that make it stand out. First off, this is a C20 model, meaning it's the heavy-duty version, and it's packing the mighty 454 V8 engine. That's the big block that Chevy fans love. With only 22,227 miles showing, this could be a low-mileage survivor, though as with any 43-year-old vehicle, you'll want to verify the mileage history. What's really cool about this Suburban is how well equipped it is. We're talking about working AC, which is pretty rare for these old rigs, power windows, power locks, and even a power rear window. It's got the original seats and maintains its true 9-passenger seating capacity, which is perfect for big families or group adventures. The two-tone beige-brown paint scheme is classic 80s style, and the running boards add both practicality and period-correct style. The seller mentions the engine is solid with no leaks, which is important for these big block motors. This Suburban also comes with a tow package, making it capable of handling serious hauling duties. These C20s with the 454 were absolute workhorses in their day. At $10,500, considering the low mileage, working features, and that desirable 454 engine, the price seems reasonable in today's market. These square-body Suburbans have been gaining popularity, especially clean, well-equipped examples. 13. We're looking at a 1970 GMC pickup that's listed for $7,000, and I've got to be straight with you about this one. First, let's address some interesting points in the listing. The seller lists it as FWD, front-wheel drive, which is definitely a mistake. These trucks were rear-wheel drive. The odometer shows 479,400 miles and has rolled over, so we're dealing with a truck that's seen some serious road time. What we've got here is a long bed GMC pickup that's wearing red paint. The seller's keeping it pretty simple with the description. It runs, it drives, and it's currently registered, which is always a plus. They've added dual exhaust, which probably gives it a nice rumble, and it's got tinted windows and a tow hitch for practicality. Now let's be honest about what you're getting here. There's no AC or heat, which means this is a pretty basic setup. These old GMCs typically came with a V8 engine, likely a 350 or 307, and an automatic transmission, but the seller doesn't specify which powertrain this one's running. At $7,000, you're looking at a running and driving classic truck that needs some comfort upgrades if you're planning to use it regularly. The price point puts it in the driver quality category, which means it's not a show truck, but could be a good starting point for a project or a basic work truck with classic style. These 1967 to 1972 GMC trucks share the same platform as their Chevrolet counterparts and are becoming increasingly popular with collectors. Parts availability is excellent, and they're relatively simple to work on. 14. We're checking out a 1982 Dodge W350 that's listed for $4,900. And let me tell you, this one's got some interesting upgrades. What we've got here is a heavy-duty 1-ton pickup with the 360 V8 engine, and it's been modernized in some smart ways. The seller has upgraded it with an MSD ignition system and MSD fuel injection on an Edelbrock intake. That's a significant improvement over the original carbureted setup, offering better reliability and drivability. The good news keeps coming. They've done some serious mechanical work. The drivetrain has been refreshed with new seals and bearings, and they've installed new brakes, shocks, tires, and exhaust. All the fluids have been changed to synthetic, which shows attention to detail. Plus, there are apparently more LMC parts still in boxes, which could be valuable for future maintenance or upgrades. At 132,564 miles, this truck has seen its share of use, but with all the recent mechanical work, that's less of a concern. The yellow paint makes it stand out, and being a 4x4 model adds to its capability and appeal. Now here's the really interesting part. At $4,900, this seems like a pretty solid deal considering all the work that's been done and the upgrades installed. These old Dodge W350S are tough trucks, and finding one with modern fuel injection is pretty rare. 15. We're looking at something really special. A 1979 Dodge Power Wagon W300 that's been transformed into a serious work machine, listed for $15,000. This isn't your typical Power Wagon. It's had some major upgrades, most notably a Cummins 5.9L diesel swap with a rebuilt Holset H1C turbo. That's a significant improvement over the original engine, offering both power and reliability. It's paired with a manual transmission and 4WD, making this a seriously capable 1-ton truck. What makes this rig unique is its work-focused setup. We're talking about a 10-foot bed with wooden side rails, a PTO winch, a hand-cranked jib crane, and even a custom-made 20-foot crane attachment. This truck was built to work. It's got dual rear wheels, single fronts, and comes with 3 spare tires, one mounted on the hood, classic style. The current owners bought it in 2003 and spent a year refurbishing it. They did a professional paint job in green, added an underbody toolbox, and set it up with all the lifting equipment. The truck's been garaged since they got it, which is great for preservation. Now let's be honest about a few things. It hasn't been licensed for road use since 2012, and there's some wear showing up. The wooden side paneling needs new varnish, and there's some rust appearing on the bed, toolbox, and front bumper. The green body has 2 small rust chips. The odometer shows 13,303, but there's an exemption on the title, and the hour meter shows 3,700 hours. At $15,000, you're getting a unique piece of equipment. This isn't just a classic truck, It's a purpose-built work machine with some serious capabilities. The Cummins swap alone is a valuable upgrade, and all the lifting equipment adds real utility. 16. We're looking at a really interesting 1984 Bronco 2 that's listed for $4,500. And this isn't your average B2, it's a special 1984 Olympic Gold Medal edition with some serious modifications. Let's be completely honest here. This is a project vehicle that needs work to get back on the road. The seller's super transparent about what it needs. Installation of the ignition harness, hooking up the cooling system, power steering pump, alternator, solenoid, battery, plus draining and flushing the gas tank and fuel lines. But here's where it gets interesting. This Bronco 2 has some serious upgrades. We're talking about professional James Duff pre-runner bumpers with Hella lights, a 4-inch lift kit with heavy-duty trailing arms, plus a 2-inch body lift. The engine is a rebuilt high-performance 2.8L Cologne V6 with an RV cam, Holley 2-barrel carb, and Edelbrock headers. It's mated to a Mazda 5-speed manual with a manual transfer case. That's a fun combination. The odometer shows just 64,000 original miles, and it comes with a clean Colorado title and auto-check report showing no accidents. It's sitting on 31-inch Goodyear tires mounted on 15-inch Motosport alloy wheels, and it's got a brand new windshield. At $4,500, for someone who's mechanically inclined, this could be a fantastic opportunity. These first-year Bronco 2s are getting harder to find, especially modified ones with documented history. Just remember, this is a project that needs finishing, not a turnkey vehicle. 17. We're looking at a 1964 GMC pickup that's listed for $5,000, and let me be straight with you about this workhorse. This is a 1-ton long bed model, which makes it a pretty serious hauler from the get-go. What's really interesting here is the powertrain. It's got the 305 V6 engine, which isn't as common as the V8S you usually see in these trucks. These V6 engines were actually pretty torquey and were known for their durability. It's paired with a 4-speed manual transmission, which is the perfect setup for a work truck of this era. The seller keeps it pretty brief, but mentions that the engine runs strong, which is good news. With 78,278 miles showing on the odometer, it's got some life under its belt, but these old GMCs were built to last. Now, let's be honest here. The seller straight up tells us it needs paint. That's pretty typical for these old work trucks, and at this price point, you're not expecting show car quality. Being a 1-ton model that's currently registered is a plus, as it means you can put it to work right away. At $5,000, you're looking at a functional piece of American truck history. These 60s GMCs are getting harder to find, especially in 1-ton specification. The combination of the V6 engine and 4-speed manual makes this an interesting example for collectors or someone looking for a classic work truck. 18. We're checking out a 1979 Chevrolet K5 Blazer Cheyenne that's listed for $3,900. And let me be straight with you about this classic SUV. First off, this is a Cheyenne model, which was a nicer trim level, and it came with some desirable features like factory AC, power steering, and power brakes. Under the hood, there's a 350 V8 paired with an automatic transmission. That's the classic combo you want in these K5s. Now here's the most important part. This is a desert truck, which explains why it's reportedly so solid. The seller claims there's virtually no rust, only surface rust, with solid body, floors, and frame. That's huge for these old Blazers, as rust is usually their biggest enemy. The interior is said to be all original and in good shape, which is pretty remarkable for a 44-year-old vehicle. The paint appears to be original too, with what the seller describes as nice patina. That's fancy talk for aged but cool looking. However, and this is a big however, the truck currently doesn't run. The seller's upfront about it having sat for years and needing to be gone through. That means you're looking at a project that will need mechanical resurrection. At $3,900 firm, for a solid rust-free K5 Blazer Cheyenne, this could be a great starting point for a restoration. These trucks have been climbing in value, and finding one with good bones is getting harder. The price seems pretty fair considering the solid desert body, even with the non-running condition. 19. We're looking at a pretty interesting 1983 Dodge Ram Prospector that's listed for $3,600, and this one's got a story to tell. First off, this is a genuine one-owner truck, bought new by the seller's aunt in '83, and they've got all the original paperwork and owner's manual to prove it. Under the hood, we've got the trusty 318 V8 paired with an automatic transmission in a 2WD configuration. That's a reliable, no-nonsense combination. Now here's the interesting part. This truck has been sitting for 11 years, but the seller says it fired right up with just a new battery and fuel. All the major systems reportedly work: power steering, power brakes, AC, heater, lights, and radio. That's pretty impressive for a truck that's been napping for over a decade. Let's be honest about what it needs, though. The seller's upfront about requiring some attention. You're looking at replacing hoses, belts, tires, especially that weather-checked front driver's side, and door seals. There's some missing trim on the driver's side bed rear and a broken headlight shroud. The good news? The frame and body panels are reportedly solid with only light surface patina. No serious rust issues. The interior is clean with no cracks in the dash, seat, or headliner, which is pretty rare for these old Dodges. At $3,600, for a documented one-owner truck with solid bones, this could be a great opportunity. You even get a weathered camper topper thrown in if you're handy with renovations. 20. We're checking out a 1982 Chevy C20 that's listed for $6,500, and let me give you the straight scoop on this diesel workhorse. What we've got here is a 3-4-ton long bed powered by the 6.2L diesel engine. These aren't the most powerful diesels ever made, but they're known for their simplicity and reliability. With 258,292 miles on the clock, this truck's definitely seen some use, but these old diesels were built to go the distance. The sellers added some nice updates: new wheels and tires, always a big expense saved for the next owner, and a modern touch with new focal speakers and an aux connection for your music. It comes with a B&W tow hitch, which is quality equipment if you're planning to pull anything. Now let's be honest about the issues, and I appreciate the seller being upfront about them. The fuel gauge doesn't work, the windshield wipers are non-functional, and it needs a new fuel select switch. There are also some minor dents and dings, which is pretty typical for a work truck of this age. On the bright side, it runs and drives, and being smog exempt is a big plus in states with strict emissions laws. The black paint gives it that classic tough truck look. At $6,500, you're looking at a usable classic diesel truck that needs some attention to the minor systems. These square-body Chevys have been climbing in value, and finding one with a diesel engine that runs and drives isn't as common as it used to be.